Good morning. Today I'd like to read you a book about a person that takes a small trip. And this trip where she takes actually exists, so you can talk with your family about going there too. It's called Cassidy and the Lost Fairy of Allerton. It was written by Jillian Duchnoswski and it was illustrated by Stojkanovic. Here we go. Cassidy was bored. She didn't want to play with her dolls. She didn't want to play soccer with Daddy. She didn't want to go for a walk. But Mommy ushered her to the car. Soon they arrived at Allerton Park. It wasn't like any park Cassidy had ever seen. Mommy and Daddy said it would be fun to see statues and pretty flowers, but Cassie just pouted. She sighed loudly. She dragged her feet. Tears threatened to spill down her cheeks, and before long, Mommy and Daddy were walking far ahead of her. Cassidy looked up at the sky and saw blue. She studied the delicate tips of the evergreen trees. She watched her shoes hit the ground walkways. Then she looked to her right and saw a fairy was peeking out from the hedge and looking at her. She watched as the fairy's wings fluttered like a hummingbird's. The fairy beckoned Cassidy to follow her and disappeared deeper into the hedge. Cassidy glanced over her shoulder and dove in after her. She spotted the fairy perched on a bare tree branch. The hedge branches were so crossed that it was hard for Cassidy to move, but she crawled in as far as she could. The fairy was swinging her legs, and she spoke very, very softly. My name's Diana. Not too many humans come in here, but I figure it's okay for a human child to see me. I almost can't believe I'm seeing you, Cassidy admitted. Where did you come from? All the way from Germany, back when I was 223 years old. Cassidy gasped. How can you be that old? I'm 344 years old now, and I'm still a young fairy. See, my wings still have bright colors. That's how you can tell. Wow, I'm just 8, Cassidy replied. Anyway, in Germany, my friends and I were exploring a market when a terrible storm blew in. My friends slipped into a carriage to stay dry, but the driver closed the door just before I could enter. I flew this way and that way. My wings were beating so quickly no human could see them. Finally, I winked my right eye twice so I could shrink even smaller, and then I darted right into a man's pocket. That's a silly place to hide, Cassidy said, giggling. Fairies sometimes do silly things, Diana nodded, but I decided to stay with him for a while. The beauty I saw in flowers, he found in things humans made. He was absolutely obsessed with looking at art. From his pocket, I saw dozens of paintings and sculptures. One day, I fell asleep in his boot. He had left them by the fire, and they were so warm and cozy. When I awoke, I was in the United States, in Illinois, at a house not far from here. Weren't you afraid? Diana's head fell before she answered. I flew all around, but I couldn't find any other fairies here. All I saw was a rectangular pond for the humans and a little lake where dozens of fish swam. I flew and flew until my big wings began to droop. I was so scared and lonely, I tucked myself into a little hole in a tree, and I cried myself to sleep. Oh no, poor Diana. Then, one night, I flew to the edge of the garden, and I sat atop a sculpture of a fish with a funny face. Imagine my surprise when, just after nightfall, the sculpture moved, dumping me almost all the way to the ground. Were you hurt? Asked Cassidy. I was too excited to worry about skidding my wings or bruising my bum. That night I watched as all the sculptures broke free of their pedestals. Little men played the softest music, and colorful fish swam circles in the air, creating their own ballet. Dogs with very serious faces jumped and ran, trying to steal sticks from one another. 3 ladies walked by laughing and giggling when suddenly one got a running start and executed a series of perfect backflips. The other 2 tried, but just splatted on the ground. I wish I could do a backflip, Cassidy said. We all played until the sun peeked over the horizon. Then I heard a faraway singing. I couldn't hear the words, but they came from the west, coaxing the sun higher and higher. All my new friends scampered and ran back to their pedestals. All except for Diana became statues again. And so, every night since, Diana has played with the 3 ladies, the dogs, and the fish, until the sun singer calls forth the sun. Then she sips the nectar and the morning dew from flowers and snuggles in for a nap until it's time to play again. But don't you get bored and lonely? Cassidy asked. Oh no, Diana said, because every day is new. Every day the flowers are different, the trees are different, and my friends all want to play different games. The most important thing to remember is my favorite fun doesn't hide with friends or mom or dad or with the best toy you've ever had. Fun comes from deep inside. You have to find it in yourself and slide. Cassidy was about to ask another question, but she heard a voice calling, Cassidy, Cassidy, where are you? It was her daddy. With a flutter and a flip, Diana disappeared as Daddy stuck his head inside the hedge. What are you doing in here, Pumpkin? Are you ready to go find Mommy? It's time to go home. I have so much to tell you, Cassidy said. Did you know the fish and the dog statues come alive at night and run around playing with each other? The fish run, the dog statues come alive? Daddy asked. That seems a bit silly. They swim through the air, she explained, hopping from one foot to the other with their big fins. And there's a man who sings to the sun each day when it comes up. I want to see him. Daddy just smiled and held out his hand. It sounds like you found your imagination again. Maybe we can see the sun singer on our way home and see if he has any stories to tell us. Cassidy smiled and grabbed his hand. She felt sure she wasn't going to be very bored for a long time. And here is about Allerton Park, where Cassidy visited. Allerton Park is near Monticello in central Illinois, and these are actually some of the real statues that you may go see. Wasn't that fun? I hope you have a nice trip. Goodbye.